further debate? Valley East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It's an honour to rise in this august chamber, and specifically as the member for Don Valley West glares at me, I'm very pleased to share that I'll be sharing and splitting my time with her over the next roughly 12 minutes. I also want to thank the member of Don Valley West for the outstanding work that she does for the members of her riding, and specifically for her outstanding leadership on analyzing and guiding us through this budget, which I sadly must admit is thoroughly underwhelming. As has been articulated before, this is a budget, sadly, that very clearly tells Ontarians that they're on their own, that this government does not have their backs, and that for the things which matter most to all of us, the things that matter most to Ontarians, they should just figure it out themselves. And unfortunately, this does not come as any surprise. You know, as a young child, I was taught in my family to do what you say. If you promise something, then you have to deliver on it. And this is something, sadly, that this government struggles with. For example, this government said all fall that they would accelerate the credentialing of foreign-trained family doctors, and we're still waiting. I have no confidence whatsoever that this bill will or can deliver on the unambitious promises that it makes. You have to do what you say. And the recent reports from the Financial Accountability Office do nothing to reassure me that this government will do otherwise. In successive quarters, we have seen consistent underspending across all of the major ministries. $1.3 billion less in health than promised, $844 million less in education, $175 million less in post-secondary education, and $458 million less in children and social services. The funding that goes to deliver services who need our help the most. Do what you say. This budget simply inspires no confidence because the members haven't even delivered on their last budget. But there's more to it than that, Madam Speaker. You don't just have to do what you say. You have to say what you do. This government has consistently committed to doing one thing, only to actually do another. For example, this government is funding a housing plan. But they promised in the process that they wouldn't touch the Greenbelt, and now they're carving it up. They promised that they would protect our public health care system, and are now funding a plan that is so poorly conceived that it will lead to the corporatization and profitization of our health care. And so, as much as I am underwhelmed by this bill, I'm also concerned about just how much it is not talking about. In healthcare, for example, the budget mentions nothing about eliminating hospital surge funding for COVID, even though it is getting eliminated tomorrow. It mentions nothing about access to hospital care for our most vulnerable and marginalized uninsured patients in Ontario, even though that also is getting eliminated tomorrow. Say what you're going to do. The government has also made a profoundly short-sighted decision in eliminating paid sick days, which will actually hurt our businesses and economy when sick people are forced to come to work and infect entire workplaces. And most upsetting of all, there is no attention whatsoever to healthcare worker retention, even as this remains one of the biggest challenges that we face in healthcare right now. Now, say what you do. Not only is there no mention of healthcare worker retention, outside of this chamber, this government is pursuing avenues to fight courts that have told this government that Bill 124 is unconstitutional legislation that infringes on charter and worker rights. On Indigenous issues, I am most disturbed at the growing chorus of Indigenous people and communities who say they have not been adequately consulted on so many of the proposed changes in this bill, in the budget. I have heard from Indigenous stakeholders, for example, that the government's plan for integrated community health services centres is being implemented without their input. And we all witnessed yesterday how Indigenous people shared their concerns about the Ring of Fire. We must listen to Indigenous people, particularly the ones who are most at stake. I have more I could say, but in the spirit of respecting the time of my colleague, I will simply mention that on the challenge of education, this government has dropped the ball, focusing upon things like infrastructure, like buildings, instead of supporting teachers by making sure that they are adequately funded. On this issue, along with so many more, the bill is very clear. People in Ontario, they are on their own, they don't matter, and this government does not have their backs. With that, I turn it to the member for Don Valley West.
Member from Don Valley West.